Welcome to the Node.js Next 10 meeting for January 10th, 2024, the first one of the year. Time flies pretty quickly. Before we jump in, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, if we don't have any announcements, one thing I will just paste in the chat the minutes if people could add themselves to the attendee list. Okay, so the first issue in the list is number 228, which is the next deep dive. And I think that one we've discussed a couple times, but I think we really do need to schedule like pick one and schedule it is probably what we just need to do. And I think we've talked about technical ones, but I think we've also talked about some other things like, I think Jean, your comment was like the need from the community, multiple path to corporate support.
Yep.
So what do we think the first one to jump to do should be?
So wait, which one would be the best? Like, I think it really depends on what we want to focus part on. Oh, Michael, can you promote Marco?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I think it also depends what do we want to focus on 2024, like based on most of the discussion and multiple like topic. I think something, hello Marco, would be great. And I know Amal, I think we'll talk about that a bit later on, but I think the corporate part, like basically having corporation being more involved in open source and stuff like that would be something quite interesting to have. And I think we can keep some time at the end of the meeting to discuss about that, as Amal is mostly, I guess, not just here for that, but it's a big part of her, and we already discussed that, and also a bit with Wes. You discussed that also with Wes a few weeks ago. So I think it could be a great topic to handle. Like the corporation support, baking, community stuff. I think that could be great.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I almost want to kind of like table this for potentially next week, honestly, Jean, only because I'm having conversations with Robin right now because I haven't had a chance to kind of update her on the pivot, and I want to make sure that like everyone is fully on board. But essentially, the TLDR, by the way, hello everyone. My name is Amal Hussein. Lovely to meet with you all. An engineer based in the Boston area. And I essentially want to kind of create a Node.js enterprise user group as a way of kind of codifying kind of the needs of like large enterprise users and figuring out if we can spec out the work and then find sponsors for that work. Because, ultimately, like, it feels like getting more contributors and maintainers is the biggest need for this project right now for the Node project. And so that would be kind of the goal behind this enterprise user group. And I kind of came to this initially because I was interested in kind of doing a bunch of community work and kind of formally joining Node this year to help with that. And after kind of talking to people and figuring out like, okay, what are the actual needs? It seems like the biggest lever that I could pull is actually not specifically just, community work, kind of similar to like what ComCom used to do, but actually kind of more focused on gathering the, figuring out like how do we re-engage enterprise users so that we can get more contributors and maintainers, engaged with the project and kind of have have the work and the needs kind of like clear and codified. So that's it. So I would say that like perhaps I think I need to have a few more conversations before I think it's best to kind of move on in this meeting. But if we could maybe, let me have the conversations that I need to have, and then we can kind of come back to I'd be happy to kind of come back and maybe double click into this. But any questions so far, or any feedback? Or
I just a few context history, just so that you're probably aware. But like there have been some attempts to set up like an end user group
yeah,
and get more enterprise feedback and stuff. So, but I don't think they don't exist, not because people don't think they're valuable. It's just we ran out of steam or volunteers, champions to make it happen. So I think that would be good. Particularly, one thing that wasn't part of the earlier discussions was trying to line up funding. In terms of like, going to the enterprise and identifying specific requirements and then getting, that group to fund those. So that's an interesting difference, and brings in a number of like, well, how would that funding get handled and so forth. It also sounds fairly, just to confirm, like node focused, right? Versus JavaScript in general is
100% node focused. Yeah.
okay.
So it would be a node enterprise user group.
Okay. So great that you're talking to Robin. Good to get the foundations perspective, but I wouldn't let that be the defining answer for you because
I really appreciate that because I'm getting some, I mean, I think so. Robin and I had a wonderful conversation about this like 3 weeks ago. She was actually the first person I kind of had my
yeah,
first conversation with about like, hey, I want to like be more involved with this, with the community and how can I help? And then, talk to a bunch of other community members and, there's just a big need for maintenance, work and innovation work. And we don't have the like that we're just yeah we just don't have the people like to work on it, quite frankly, right? And so it's like, okay, well, how do we change that, right?
right,
And like for me, the best way I've seen open source like move the needle is when you align it with business needs. Like when you align things with business needs, it's really easy to say, hey, this percentage of your revenue is coming from this project or this tool, and so like here, give back because this percentage of your revenue depends on it. And so I think for me, it's not like people don't want to help. It's not like people don't want to contribute. It's not like people don't want to give back or do. It's just a matter of aligning those needs internally and externally. And so I think for me, what I'd like this group to do is to actually take the next 6 to 8 months to kind of actually come up with somewhat of a roadmap, right? So like have those conversations with big users and figure out like what do you need from Node? What's missing? What's broken? What's slow? What would move the needle for you internally? What do you need? And getting those issues codified, getting the work specced out, and then working ideally with them first to find like sponsorship within those companies, right? So once we actually have the work codified and spec'd out, and we know, hey, this is going to be like one engineer, 3 weeks, 4 people, like however long, we can actually, we like the first option would be for the company to just have a maintainer, right? So then there's no money exchanging hands or anything. It's just like they're indirectly contributing to Node through engineering time. So that would be one. The other is like hire an Igalia or something like that, or hire someone, like you pay someone to work on open source. And again, that kind of takes away the equation of money, as well, because I know that's tricky. And then the last thing would be funding. Like I would love to be able to get us to be able to pay people to work on Node, like, and that's been tricky. And I've gotten some advice around this, and there's maintenance work is going to be much easier to fund than innovation work, because of like legally stuff. But again, like we're not even at that problem yet, right? So like I like want to tackle this big elephant like one bite at a time. And for me, I think Robin there's just concerns around, hey, like Node is a pretty big part of our foundation, and we just have we have like this big um Node IT infrastructure thing that we're trying to raise money for. And I think she's concerned around, I don't want these two things to conflict, you know what I mean? And so I need to have conversations with her. But I think what's also challenging is like I had one conversation with Robin, and then I had a whole bunch of other conversations with all the contributors, and I like completely changed my mind. And I'm coming back to Robin like, oh, I want to do something else now, actually. You know? So I just want to be respectful to that. But yeah, but
So
Michael,
Marco,
thank you for that. And for what it's worth, I've some of the people that I've asked to potentially help with this new committee new working group within Node is Ahmed Nasri, who actually was part of the enterprise, the original But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
he explained that it was a slightly different focus, and he's like, I actually really like your approach better, ML, because this is, and so even though I'm actually facilitating and creating the container for this committee, I don't even want to be the chair. I maybe I'm gonna be involved and help, obviously, but I don't even think I'm the best person for the job in terms of being the true kind of public face of this group, right? Because I actually want to work on other things eventually, specifically community work. Happy to be the chair of that, but yeah, so just wanted to share some of that context with you all.
So I will have a comment, but yeah,
Please.
Marco had your hand up, so I want to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mark. And by the way,
yeah, I
can
just
everyone hear me okay?
yeah.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
So yeah, this is one of the topics that I've been hearing a lot from, especially from companies, and that actually want features implemented in Node.js. For example, I know a lot of companies that want TypeScript first class support, but they don't know how to they don't have people to put to work, especially small companies. But like I think the general idea is to be able to get funding. I think the best way would be through the Linux Foundation for a specific, for example, if we have like 10 points that we want to work on, like top priorities, it would be able to open funding for those priorities and then have the standard decision process, the ones that also like when we find a champion to implement the inside the TSC collaborators or whatever, we find a champion, and that champion gets funded with the money that gets from the crowdfunding. It's what you call it. So I think this would be a great way, and it's already being done by the Linux Foundation, because both me and Rafael are both under the contract, and that money has been gathered by Linux, the OpenJS Foundation.
Oh, okay.
So this is something that we can bring up. So like companies want a feature, they can donate money, and then that money goes to champion decided by the project to work on,
Bingo.
for example.
Bingo. That's exactly it, Marco. I think for me, I don't, because I'm just so early in these conversations. It's just been just under a month, and the holidays obviously being a big chunk of that time. I think for me, I'm just trying to kind of tread carefully around the money conversation, specifically because I just don't want that to shut the door, right? Because there's 80% of this work is not money, right? 80% is being prepared to ask for money, right? Because the work is clear, the need is clear, it's clear which businesses need what. It's the point is this enterprise group, I want us to kind of be the arm and the wing for these engineers internally to make the business case, right? We're there to kind of help with that to some degree. But yes, everything you just said. And Michael, is this meeting being recorded, by the way? I don't even know.
Yes.
Yeah,
It is.
it's live on
We're
YouTube.
up.
Yeah, I don't see the record button, or the record icon, so that's why I asked. But I appreciate you saying don't let the foundation's opinion be the driving factor
Right.
or whatever. I super appreciate that, because honestly, yeah, it's a little disappointing that just the initial gut knee-jerk reaction from Robin was hold on, right? I get it. I would probably do the same thing if I were her, but it's every single person I've spoken to other TSC members, I've spoken to people involved with the Linux Foundation, Jory, for example, other people. I've spoken to people, John and I had a wonderful conversation about this 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. I don't even remember. The universal answer has been yes, there's a need. Yes, go for it, right? And I for me, I trust, I'm not trying to do this alone. I'm trying to do this as part of a community. We're gonna make better decisions together. I trust us to not mess this up, and I trust that we'll figure out the obstacles as they come along, just like we always do, right? So I appreciate
Yeah.
that encouragement, Michael. I just wanted to say
Yeah,
thank you.
my comment comes from that that's why I was asking, is it like overall JavaScript or Node specific, right? Like, I think it's fair for our project to say what's right for our project. The foundation has a little bit of a different mandate. It's like, let's look at the whole ecosystem. There's 40 different projects. How do we be fair to all of those projects? Does that mean whatever funding has to be split 40 ways? Well,
Right.
but as a project, we want to be a good member, but I don't think that precludes us from saying we should focus on our project, right? Like, and that's where I think there's a little bit of a different perspective. I'm happy for us to say, like, this is what's the right answer for our project. We, of course, should work closely with the foundation where there's support, in terms of, like, Marco correctly points out, they've helped us manage funds, because that's not something good that we're good at. But like, if
Nobody wants to work on that,
they can manage the funds for us, that's a great fit. But like, I think in terms of us saying we want to generate money that comes to our project only, or with a focus on our project, that's a fair thing for our project to do, right? And
Yeah,
say,
agreed.
so anyway, that's what I just wanted to say, is like,
Thank you.
it shouldn't be a decision that's made at the foundation level whether this makes sense. It should be something that the project says, does this make sense? And if we say yes, then it's how do we fit with the programs and the other things
Yeah.
that are going on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, and agreed. I think for me, just in terms of community building, right? Like, because for me, I'm doing this as community work. Like, this is still community work. It's just a different flavor of community work, right? One that's more focused towards like scale users. Putting my community hat on and my like alliance building hat on and my like staff engineer, like engineering manager, get nerds to agree hat on, right? Like, I think it's really important to get alignment with the foundation either way. Like, I don't want to be working against that. You know what I mean? And so for me, like, it's important to bring them to the table, and it's important for them to be a part of this just as much as all of us. So, for me, like, I'm happy to compromise where it makes sense, like, because I think it's fine. We go slower together. It's fine. It's better than like going faster apart. Like, you know what I mean? So for me, like, that's always a priority. But that being said, yes. So
Yeah, like, I think the idea of, if we could find a group of companies who were like willing to fund work, I think that would be, a great thing, right? And then how you turn that into actual people working is the next question. But like, actually building those groups, if we actually had 10 companies saying, well, I want to fund actual development. For example, I haven't joined the foundation because the foundation doesn't support development work. They'll support infrastructure work, and that's like a public stance. So I'm not,
yeah.
um,
Well, that's what
then
Rob
it's
was
like,
saying.
okay,
We
how
have
do
a
we
big campaign right now to fund infra.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Robin just said that that's what they have going on right now. They have a big campaign to
Yeah.
fund infra.
Right. So they that seems to be the line, is that, like, some infra and security, the funding act that came through the OSSF. So like, it's that yeah. Anyway, that seems to be the line. And so like, if we had people saying, well, I want to fund something, but that's not, that mechanism doesn't seem to be the right way, then you have a good place to start the conversation of, well, like, okay, what is a good way?
Right. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's a hard job. Like, I know Jean has certainly like given us some insight in terms of within, his company, making the case to your company to spend money on anything that they don't have to spend the money on. Like,
Yeah.
they should for risk management, from my perspective.
Oh yeah.
But if you don't have to, or you haven't been burnt already, it's hard, right? So that's where I can see a lot of work or like assets and stuff,
Yeah, but if it's for new feature, then I guess the thing is completely different, because let's as an example, SBOM could be something that many corporate are willing to fund because it's
security
good.
work, right? The SSL
It's
stuff.
good for them. Or for example, like a new feature that it's beneficial could be like I'm not sure right now, but for example, Quick could be a feature that would improve a product, make it faster. So some companies would be interested in fund that. So once the priorities are collected through a survey, then those priorities, the work for those priorities could be funded by companies, for example, or either by also individuals or by whoever, and then the TSC has full control over where the budget gets allocated, because it's the project that should decide like how to spend the money. But I think the financial part, for example, like the legal part, should be collected by the OpenJS Foundation, because I don't think Node has the capacity of like attorneys and like all this bureaucratic stuff. So get the money, and then TSC decides where to allocate the money depending on obviously the priorities and the survey. So this would totally work in my opinion.
So,
Yeah.
sorry, so just one quick point on that. I think most, like you said, Michael, most of the companies spend, like every top 10, top 20 company in all countries rely on Node.js somewhere. And we all spend a huge amount of money to do the same stuff, because I guess that most of the cybersecurity stuff that we do at Sanofi is the same that we did in Allianz, in banking, and we, like every company want their own security, and I can agree with that, but I think we could find a way, or there is some kind of path, I guess, where most of these companies could pull some fund, so like what the name of the like security fund or stuff like that. I don't remember the exact name on that, but I think this is something that most of the company would agree, even if it's, we are not talking about millions of dollars, stuff like that, just even if you have 20 companies pledging, I don't know, 30 grand on that, it's still a huge amount, which would allow to pay multiple contributors part-time during the year on Node.js and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I'm just speaking like 10 companies in just one country. If we can replicate that through 10 countries, like the security would be like, we would be able to have multiple audits per year and stuff like that, which could be great.
It could also be handled by bounties, for example. Like we allocate like 5K on this feature, the one who like it's not my favorite system, but like just saying
but it's a lever, right? And I think for me, it's like it's kind of ridiculous that Node doesn't have that lever. Like it's not the best lever, but it is a lever. And so like, we should have every lever available to us, or we should like there. My whole thing is like this is one of the most important software projects on the web, right? And we don't have like how many full-time contributors do we have, right? Like I don't think anyone's actually working on Node full-time right now anyway. And so it's
nobody is paid to just do Node
yeah,
work,
just do Node, right.
Nobody's
but it's
paid to just do that. Yeah.
Like me and Rafael, we are allowed to work a lot on Node, but we have other stuff to do. Like when we don't have other stuff, we work on Node. So
right.
Like
yeah, I guess Rafael's maybe the one exception, right? Because of the funding from the OSSF in terms of like close to full-time on Node. But like and just for anybody who's listening or watches the recording, like the only reason we're talking about money is because I think the history has shown it's very difficult for companies to support their people coming and contributing. And so we're just looking for like, I think that the preferred case is like companies said, hey, we're going to let our people who
engineers
are working
work on this. That's the preferred mode. Yeah.
That's the preferred mode for sure. But like our history over the last 8 years has shown that just hasn't panned out, right? Like we don't have enough to cover just even the maintenance work to cover and so we're just exploring other ways of how do we get people who's it's not their purely personal volunteer time. It's like, let's get more time funded by the large ecosystem which uses it and make it easy for people, right? Like it's if you can't send your people, but like Jean says, if they could give 20K easily, let's make it an easy way for that to happen, right?
Yeah, and I think for me, so yes. So yes, and what I'm interested in actually helping kind of facilitate is actually creating the framework so companies have a clear understanding of like how to help and what the needs are, right? Like, and specifically like after they've identified what their own needs are, right? What features do you need? What security patches are important to you? What maintenance work needs to happen, or whatever it is, right? Like, what are your needs? And here's a framework for all the ways that you can help, right? Like having materials having those discussions with with the people in the business that can help make that decision. I think like that's the work. And so I guess my question to you all is like, given that, my God, this is a weird question to ask at a meeting this early, and like, but I mean, in theory, like, would we need like our own lawyers to kind of help figure out some of this outside of the foundation's lawyers, or would we be able to use the foundation's lawyers?
I think I think that's like a long question. I think we can ask the foundation lawyers for advice and get their advice, and they're definitely going to want to have a legal opinion on things, right? Now that costs money. So I think, we need to first put down like, well, what is it we think we'd like to do, what we think is the right way to do. And then it could be like, then the question is like, are there any legal concerns with this, right? And I'm sure the foundation, like, that's where they can definitely weigh in terms of like, yeah, this is an issue, this is an issue, this isn't an issue, and then
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't really know like what the relationship has been like with the Node project and the foundation. Obviously, like the foundation is staffed by amazing human beings that work really hard for the JavaScript ecosystem, and they're awesome. Yeah, but the nature of like these types of relationships is there's always some level of there's some tension, right? Just like between an engineering manager and a product manager, there's always some tension. And so I'm just curious, like, have there I guess I can maybe share like some of the tensions that I've heard about is more just around like that, like Node is the biggest project, but we like doesn't get the TLC and time like from the foundation given the scope and size of the project, right? So
it's certainly
like
personally, so I don't want to speak for other people, but I think that's one of the challenges that the foundation faces, right? Like, how do you balance 40 projects,
of course.
one big project, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, we can as a project decide what we think we want to do and make specific asks. Like, I think part of it is this is really hard. And it's not like we've said, hey, this is what we want and we've got to know, right?
Yeah.
So it's, it comes down to, that's why one of our, like, on our list of potential deep dives was like, what do we want from the foundation, right? Because it's kind of like the foundation provides some things, clearly some things like legal, they've managed some money for us and stuff like that. But I think it would be good to make those things more specific, like, hey, we would like, it could be if we said like one of our goals is to get money that we can direct at certain things, we would want to have on that list to take the money, pay the contractors, right? And like, that's happened, but I think it would be good to be an explicit list, right? And I think some of that would drive some of those conversations, right?
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, again, I just really appreciate all the insights. And thank you all so much for weighing in. Like I said, I need to have my follow-up with Robin and kind of like soothe the FUD, like, and just like, yeah, so good times. I think I'm personally a little bit thrown off, to be honest with you all, because I don't expect, like, I didn't expect any type of like I didn't expect any opposition at all on this because it seems so aligned with what's best for the project and what's probably even best for the foundation. Like, I'm interested in like enterprise taking JavaScript seriously again, and we have to start acting like grown-ups in order for that to happen,
So
and when that happens,
what
hopefully maybe
if
we get even more members, right? Like,
what if we make a proposal to the TSC about this, like a formal proposal? We put down a document saying, like, to create a process where you gather feedback from community, you gather feedback from companies, you set priorities, you gather funding, and like have some ways, and then the TSC decides, like talking with the foundation, and I think CPC is also like I think Matteo has also this power of talking with both,
Yeah.
and see what could be like. This is what we want to achieve. Let's figure out how we can achieve this. But I think it would be great to have at least something on paper, an idea, and then formalize it on what's possible, what's not possible, if it's doable. Like this is, I think, with TSC, and then escalate to the foundation.
Yeah, no, that's really good feedback, and thanks, Marco. That's a great idea. I think for me, like what I wanted to do for next step was put together like a one pager. And basically Matteo said, yeah, well, you just make a repo and put your one pager there, and we can discuss it. But like, I like your suggestion of like actually maybe phrasing it more as a proposal. Like I think that's a solid idea. I don't know. Any thoughts, Michael or Jean?
I think like, basically saying, hey, here's what I think makes sense and I'd like to champion it. Here's the proposal. And then, that would require from the project like this, and this, right? Like we're going to want some repos or whatever. Like what's the ask from the project? And then, if there are any resources, because there's probably going to be some, as well as like, does this fit? We want the TSC and the collaborators to kind of look at the proposal and say, does this fit with how we think the project should be managed, right? Like,
Right.
and depending on how specific it is, right? It can be like, yeah, I don't know. It's, but I think the more we have that's actually written down and in like a public repo where everybody, like all the collaborators can chime in, the TSC members can chime in, foundation members can chime in, like that's the way we work, right? Like we do
Yeah,
things
in the open.
transparently, and so having it actually visible and have the discussion, because then at least we'll remember the discussion the next time too. I
Yeah.
know on this front there's been lots of informal discussions, but nobody who's had enough time, because like it's going to take enough time to actually put together a proposal, champion to move it forward and stuff like that. So I think you'll find people who are like, yeah, I've been thinking about this, but never had the cycles to actually do something real, right? Versus
Yeah.
just like, we wish we could do something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's great advice and good next steps. So I can kind of take point on that. And thank you, Marco and Michael, for that feedback.
You can also open a pull request on the next 10,
Yeah.
like create a document on the next 10 repository and start like write down ideas on a file on the repository, and then expand when we think it's ready, propose it as a formal proposal and see.
That would be dope. That sounds amazing. Because that's the thing, like I wanted to put together that one pager, Marco, like, you know what I mean? Just kind of like citing the idea, the motivation, the goals and non-goals, if that makes sense, I think it's really important to state goals and non-goals. And so, I think maybe that's a good place to start, and then we can kind of collaborate on there. And then you're right, like once we feel like this is like ready, like to kind of take to the TSC, then we can actually reframe it as a proposal.
Yeah, that's a good way to get some smaller group input and feedback before you
Yeah.
go into the larger groups.
Yeah, go into the lines done. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, got it. I love that. Thank you all so much for that invaluable feedback. And can I just do like intros with you all? Like I know Michael and Jean. Marco, I think I did. Were you at NodeConf?
Yes, yeah, we met at NotConf.
I'm like pretty sure I met you. Yeah, okay. Ulysses?
Ulysses, yeah. Oh, Ulysses, it's fine.
Ulysses. Awesome. I think you're the only person who I haven't met. So hello. Are you obviously you're a Node contributor, but like, or are you based in the US and Europe?
Yeah, I'm helping Node.js mostly with the build team and also as a releaser and yeah, here and there. So yeah, I'm based in Spain actually, in Europe. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, nice to meet you. And yeah, I don't know what this next Node 10 group is all about, but like everything I've heard you guys do, it's like all the cool things that I want to do. So like, I don't know, could someone give me like the pitch on
Yeah, we started it around the 10-year anniversary of Node, and it was like, hey, super successful first 10 years. What do we need to do to make the next 10 years successful? So anything that sort of falls into that, it's kind of like we've spent the first number of years really going through the technical side of things. So we're like, where are the technical gaps? What are the things that should be priorities in Node itself? I think we've done a pretty good job of like saying like, what do people need? What's important to the stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders? What are the priorities? And so like the low hanging fruit, we've certainly gotten through on that. And that's why this year we were talking more about maybe moving instead, like our deep dives, like before we did like a deep dive on ESM, like, okay, what are the remaining gaps? What do we need to do? Try and come up with some next steps. But we're kind of, I think the discussion we've been having is we're kind of at the point where it's probably diminishing returns on that front, but let's look instead at the more organizational things, right? So that's why like, let's formalize the list of what we need from the foundation. So sort of our relationship organization with how we get help, how we ask for help. One of the other suggestions is still like we still struggle with good pathways for new contributors. So
Yeah.
let's maybe have a deep dive on that.
That's something
How
I'm
to
super
build-
passionate about personally, like, because that's going to be actually, it intersects very heavily with the enterprise user group, because I'm sure, hopefully, if we're successful, we'll have a bunch of new contributors and they're going to need like some on-ramp, And so how
Right,
do we
yeah.
smooth that out?
And then like how to build corporate support is kind of at the recent collaborator summits has been just a recurring thing. So again, that one is one where that was on the list. I don't know if there's any other, but looking at more of the organizational, those non-technical things is what we were thinking of focusing on for the next little while.
So we also started the discussion about the documentation, some stuff also around community or improving not just the technical part, but how can we communicate like what we do on the tech side and to involve more people and around that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, I think it's a fourth year now because we started in 2019, December 2019. So next 10 celebrated is 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
Maybe we should have picked a better name or something now, but
Yeah, and then there's a survey I heard, like potentially.
yeah,
Or
we ran surveys. Like we ran a survey last year, which was like, here's some key questions about like what's important. Again, we have like our what we've said we think is important to people. So we were surveying like, is that still accurate? And the survey results are in the repo. So we've done that. We should probably do do that again this year to kind of say like, hey, we've written down what we think is important to people. Does the greater community tell us that still matches? And we had some questions about like, what are your main pain points and
yeah,
things like that.
that seems like
again, like
source work too, right? I think that was at the goal of the survey to kind of figure out what the direction is for this committee to focus on.
in some ways, but like it's kind of like if we got the whole answer wrong and what we think's important, then yeah, we need to revise that. And
I see.
we didn't have too many, like we didn't say, hey, what do you think we should be looking at? But we were trying to get information to.
No, we had a lot of questions like about knowing our user, on which kind of architecture and infrastructure do you deploy Node.js? Are you a front-end, back-end library author? Like, who is the kind of people that answer? Where are you from, basically, which continent? And we were surprised that Europe was the first one, I think, from memory this time. More people that answered and stuff around that. Also, like Michael said, the main pain point for people. Also that, and we know that externally, but it also confirms some point like TypeScript is even more important today as it was 1 or 2 years ago, because it's something that is mostly recurrent across all survey for the past 2-3 years, I think. So yeah, and just to add to that, I think we should try to be able to send a survey for around March this year again.
Yep.
Like something around that. So I think I will open an issue to check and start with a list of questions I will pull from other survey, and then we can discuss that also during the next meeting on what do we want to do with the next survey. Are we keeping the same kind of question, or do we want to move to other type of question for depending on the feedback we got from the previous result and everything.
Got it. That sounds great. Well, thank you all so much.
trying to loop back to the question of like, what should our next deep dive be and when? Because
Yes.
I think it would be good to pick that and to schedule one. Any other suggestions on the list? I've written in like we've got the capturing the list of what the project needs, wants from the foundation, building better pathways for new contributors, how to build corporate support. I threw in this one, just what are the biggest challenges being faced by the project? That might be a good just sort of starting the like that if we're gonna say like it's more those organizational things, maybe that's a way to start. I don't know if other people have if there's more things we should add to that list.
Like, so just for me, I think one that would be really interesting would be also how to build corporate support, everything linked to corporate. You already added this one, but I think it could also be a good help for the new enterprise group, working group, stuff like that, which would provide good results and good feedback if we tailor some question around that topic.
So in
That would
terms
be,
of a deep,
that would be amazing.
Also, one thing that we probably, I'm not sure if we have done it, but how about gathering internal feedback from collaborators and TSC directly? Because, well, not everybody joins Collab Summit. And I think there hasn't been any chance to gather internal feedbacks on how to, like, what's the feedback of collaborators? And then, like, have a survey on that too. Because I think that would be also helpful.
I think that's a good thing. Would that be a deep dive or would that be
So yeah, because
something
like,
else?
from memory, we did like a few like 15, 20 minutes in Seattle, in Vancouver, I think this year, where we discussed a bit about that. And last year, I think we did it also in Dublin before the NodeConf EU. I think I remember we discussed about corporate support, like maybe 20-ish minutes that were not recorded.
But I guess it's that like, you know, Marco's point, not everybody make those.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
So
no,
like
true.
doing it in a way, and I'm just wondering whether like a deep dive where we like that's like a meeting people show up to, that still might
No,
not get that many
I
people.
would
So
s-
like I think
Yeah, an
like
issue
that
on the
be
collaborator repository where all the
right.
collaborators in TC like have go through the survey one and
Yeah.
express but like their opinions as people working on the project. Like, how could you, what would you
Yeah.
like to see? That would be great.
Yeah. I'm just gonna note that as other. I'm just trying to break that down. Non-deep dive suggestions. Any other like deep dive, like where we bring people together to try and like, you know, brainstorm through an issue effectively and come up with, you know, some next steps, right? Like the goal of those is usually to say like, hey, let's dive into this particular area. Is it an issue? Or are we good? Like, no, everything's good and rosy, nothing to do. Or here's some concrete next things we should do. So it's kind of the goal of those.
Yeah, just you saying that I was like getting a feedback about did we like I remember we did discuss and maybe it could be interesting to have a deep dive on that would be how do we want to communicate more around user event and stuff like that around us being presenting at conferences about Node.js about specific topic or big event about Node.js, and I think we had a quick discussion like in Bilbao like 3 months ago around that. Do we want a deep dive? And which would be a first step before we bring that to the foundation, for example, where it would be, oh, for every conference, if we have people being Node.js collaborator, we want to be able to produce an article about the conference, about the topic being presented, a small recap, something like that, just to show and communicate about Node.js as a whole, not just we did release a new version or we added a new feature, but you also have basically focused a bit more about the people that help Node.js to live and to evolve.
Is that around is the more general topic advocacy for the project?
Yeah. Could be advocacy for a project. That's a good term. Yeah.
like what all, like we've done some work, like Ulysses done lots of good work with the
Yeah, oh yeah, true.
with the what do we call it, the Node.js feeder. Like that's one way getting the news out. I could see this being another thing, like, you know, like you said, like it comes down to like, hey, as a project, what do we think would be beneficial to grow visibility, to grow whatever, right? Like, you know, yes, we want, and if we want help doing these things, like that could be part of our actual asks for.
True.
Yeah. So I have some insight. I just want to, I'll put my hand up. I'll put my
Go
hand
ahead,
in the
yeah.
queue.
Oh, go ahead.
So I think for me, one of the things I wanted to kind of work on as part of this, like revamping the community, right? Like kind of stepping into more community leadership work for this project was kind of creating kind of like a knowledge based kind of repository specifically around like blog posts and technical articles and like case studies for enterprise and getting having it be kind of like a almost like a little magazine, like an online magazine, right? But it's not really a it's like just a rolling like space for technical knowledge that's more like on the advanced front. And so, I don't know, like, and I think for me, like, I wanted to get big companies to write like posts on there around like how they're using something or or issues that they've hit when scaling or whatever. Like, I can think of Netflix as like a good candidate for some of those, right? So, but I don't know, something very similar to kind of like what V8 has, that website that V8 has for their, like, what I'm talking about. Michael's nodding.
I
That
don't
that
know that
like
there's V
V8.ex.
has like a blog posts, but they're pretty sparse. Like it's not. So Jean, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, for example, like we always present when we do release a new version of Node.js or some new feature, you have a blog post for that. Something that would be great, and I will be like giving an example with you, could be great for people here, we know that we can use Node API to do specific stuff using C++, Rust, or native add-on. But we never communicated other than the pure technical side on you can do that, or we released a new version of it. Whereas, for example, we could use because I remember you did an article on the Red Hat or IBM blog post about that, and basically doing almost the same stuff to communicate about, okay, we do have the pure technical presentation, we release a new version, but also, and also during this conference, someone from Node presented about this topic, you link it to the technical blog post, but also in which case can you use this solution or dedicated use case or something like that, and use us, but also maybe other people that go to conferences to speak about specific one of the topic, and just to see that as we don't give you just the technical information, but also how you can use it, how it can be relevant to you, or anything else, or just to know and to learn more about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm kind of liking the idea of like making the deep dive, like advocacy and promotion for the project as something where we could, hopefully find people who are interested. Sorry, let's see your hands up too. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt, but yeah, I think that picking with the idea of John on that, I think we can easily build an aggregator, like of where the companies are publishing, and we just make a website where you have the title description. When you link, you go to that website, for example. So we don't even have to, have like a pull request or something like that. And side note on that, we officially built the website for the news feed. I forgot to say that on the announcement. So, but we can pick that idea and use the same format, just, adding like really great blog post about someone in DevTool about this is cool. Corporation using Node that way, which is fantastic. Let's do some promotion, this kind of thing, or this tag from a collaborator maintainer or whatever. So we can just, like cherry pick, add some, description and title, and basically that's it. Even we can collect the description and title from their own blog, so we don't even do hard work.
So we only have 2 minutes left. I think that's fine because we didn't have the other things on the agenda. I don't think there was anything burning. But would it make sense to people to say, like, let's make our next deep dive on advocacy and promotion for the project? And I'm kind of proposing February 22nd as the date, partially because I'm out earlier February, and I think we need a little bit of time to plan. That I think
Sorry, so
we've often
22nd, I think you have multiple conferences. You do have Kung Fu in
Oh
Montreal,
yeah.
in some other
okay.
tech conferences.
Well,
I think some people...
who's at Kung Fu? Oh, I will be there too.
Oh, cool. Seeing you
Oh,
there.
great. That's in Montreal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. If
I
you want
always
to
think
join,
I should do something
That's
there,
so
but I
cute. You
never
guys
have.
didn't know that you were gonna
Yes.
both be there
No.
until just now.
I may have a free ticket if you want, Michael.
Okay, so I don't know. Maybe I'll open an issue that says like, hey, we're proposing this as our next one,
Yeah.
and the dates, people can jump in what dates think
Okay,
are
great.
good, and we can go from there.
Cool.
Okay, well, thanks for everybody's time. We're gonna get cut off any second, so thanks very much, and we'll see everybody in GitHub and next time.
Hi,
Great.
so great to
Start
meet you
to a new
all
year.
again. Thank you.
Thanks.